briefly tell us, what are other causes of avoidable blindness? Apart from trauma, you've mentioned trauma,
Yeah.
you've mentioned refractive errors.
Yeah.
How about disease?
Now, talk about things like cataracts, conjunctivitis, as simple as it may seem, if not managed properly, because we've seen cases where people have what they call red eye, and they use urine. Just last week, I saw someone.
They still do that?
Urine, baby poo, breast milk, petrol, seawater,
And all those I
olive
know.
oil. And these things are based on religious beliefs that are handed down through tradition from grandparents to parents. And you don't
Okay,
stop to
because
ask
of
questions.
Ebola, we know the first two I know. But how about breast milk and olive oil?
No.
Are those harmful?
You shouldn't, because the truth is, why should I take a bottle of olive oil and pour in my eye? You don't even, because the truth is, when it comes to proper treatment, accurate diagnosis must first be made. Now you have a red eye, you sure don't know what exactly the problem is, and you just assume, you take, and you know, it's so funny, how could a grown-up man, you just start going around from house to house looking for someone to express breast milk so that you put on your eye. Now, you don't even know if the person is infected or something, and all we need to do is just sit down and think.
Okay. Some people have said that they have eye problems because they are diabetic. Can you help us understand that?
Okay, now, I'll look at it from this angle too, because I'm trying to create a holistic picture. We've passed the level where, you know, in those days where you ask someone, I'm going to see an optician, and he will just say, okay, you go, you sit in front of a doctor, and he puts a big slate in front of you, and you just read A, B, C. You know, you can even memorize those things. We've passed that level now. The technology has made things a little bit much more easier. Your margin for error as a doctor is reduced because, you know, there are a lot of things you can focus on. When you measure something like diabetes, high blood pressure, I'm talking about, when it comes to the eye, I'm talking about things like diabetic retinopathy, hypertensive retinopathy.
Can we come down a bit? What's retinopathy?
Retina. You know, we
Okay,
talked about
that's
the
same retina we looked at.
Yes. When someone
So what does the pathy mean?
Okay, that's like a disease condition now.
Okay.
Okay, now, when that's a known disease condition, because you've had idiopathic, which means not known disease condition. Now, when someone has a systemic problem like sugar diabetes, now it all boils down to the fact that people don't do regular general checkup, not just the eye, okay? Now, when you don't know, it is the tendency for, you know, your sugar level to rise beyond controllable body measures is there. And the very important organ of the body that can be damaged easily is your eye. You could develop things like cataracts quickly.
From the diabetes?
From diabetes. You could develop things like what we mentioned just now, the diabetic retinopathy, which means the retina becomes swollen, it becomes serous, blood now begins to leak in. And of course, when you know, the eye is like a camera.
Does that mean that these vessels burst?
Some
Is
of
that
them.
Why the blood is leaking in?
Yes, but those are advanced stages now of diabetes. You know, when you have very, very high levels or sustained levels of diabetes that happen.
So what happens when there's high blood pressure?
When there's high blood pressure,
same thing?
almost the same thing, okay? So, what you're now having now is, you see someone come into the clinic and he says, I woke up this morning, I was attacked in the dream, and I can't see again. And he or she thinks, the mother from the village
That
shot
it's
an
a
arrow.
spiritual thing.
Yes. Now, I don't want to, because I know we're in a very religious society.
Well, it's
Fine.
okay to be religious, isn't it?
But
go to the doctor.
Yes, because the truth is, there was someone who came in just like that too. And when he came in, what we found out that the blood pressure was elevated. When I mean critical level.
And that showed in the eye?
Yes.
Do most conditions show in the eye like that?
Things like diabetes, things like cholesterol problems, things like high blood pressure. You could pick them with latest technology, and even using your ordinary ophthalmoscope, the doctor could be able to tell you, oh, I suspect something is wrong here. When last did you do your blood check? Because you see, the eye is a part of your body.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Can someone then come to an eye doctor, an optometrist, an ophthalmologist, and be diagnosed with diabetes, high blood pressure, from the eye doctor?
Now, what we do is we query.
Okay.
We put a question mark. When we suspect certain things, we put a question mark and say, you need to see your GP. Or you need to
so
go
you
do
now
certain
refer
tests.
the person to such a specialist.
Yes. But we have saved the life in that process.
This is where synergy comes in.
Yes, because you see, we don't operate alone. We have our other allied professionals. You have the ENT, you have the dentist, you have the GPs, you have the surgeons, you have the retinal surgeon. All that come into play.
Now that you mentioned the dentist, does that come into play here with the eye?
Yes.
What's the connection?
The connection is that, you know, your body has 12 cranial nerves. And these nerves are, you know, kind of connected, okay? Your eye is the second cranial nerve. Now you have what we call the trigeminal nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve, and other nerves too, that when there is a particular pain in a particular area, the person begins to tear.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. It's very,
so
very
it
possible.
has ocular
links.
implications.
There are.
What would you tell the people out there watching? What would be the thing you tell them if you had one thing to tell them to avoid blindness?
I would tell them, do not joke with your sight. Don't stay ignorant. Don't neglect the obvious. I can't say I'm a chartered accountant when I've not sat down for an exam. Have your eyes tested. I would say, I'm coming here on behalf of the Nigerian Optometric Association, Lagos chapter, saying, make sure you see your optometrist, see your eye doctor, ensure that the needful is done. When you see a doctor, you should ask questions. Don't just go there and anything they give you, you know, you swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Ask questions, ask intelligently, and be sure, just for time's sake, I'm sure, make sure you see your eye doctor.
Now you have spoken about primary level eye care, where the person stands up, no symptoms, no problem, and sees the eye doctor.
Yes.
How often do they do that if everything is okay?
If everything is fine, if you give birth to a child at the age of 3, you should have your eye examined. And what we advise is, if everything is fine, at least once in 2 to 3 years, have your eyes, let it be a part of your yearly plan.
Once in 2 to 3 years?
Yes, for a normal, that is when all things are fine. Now, if that child is detected or diagnosed with maybe a particular refractive error, then your doctor will probably draw up a schedule for you. Maybe the child has a squint, maybe like orthoptics and thereby. And then also when you get to 35 and 40, assuming you've already passed the age of 3, ensure that you see your eye doctor.
When someone gets to 35
Between
or 40,
35 and 40.
Do you have to increase the number of times you see the eye doctor?
Yes, yearly
Every
visits.
year,
Yes.
just like the physical checkup.
Yes.
Tell me, are there any types of blindness that cannot be avoided?
They can be managed.
Yeah, but that cannot be
Things
avoided.
like glaucoma, for instance.
Okay.
Glaucoma is the leading cause of irreversible blindness. Okay, it's a group of diseases that affect the optic nerve at the back of the eye. Okay, now it's usually characterized by raised intraocular pressure. So you could almost want to typify it with what you call raised blood pressure, which people are very conversant with. But also the eye has its own natural pressure, which is sustained by the vitreous gel in the eye.
That's
okay?
the vitreous
That's
gel?
the vitreous. It's just a picture anyway. Okay, it's a gel. Okay, now, now you have other types of glaucoma which may not be tied to pressure. We call them low tension glaucoma. But characteristically, you have this common one which is called open angle glaucoma. Recently, we've seen it in a lot of young children. Talking
Why?
about 10-year-olds, because it's hereditary. It affects the African, the
But
black
isn't
race
it
more than the white.
supposed to affect people when they are older?
Yes, that is another risk factor. But the truth is the hereditary factor is a very strong factor. So if one person in your family is diagnosed with glaucoma, every blood relation needs to be screened.
Okay. If screening starts in time for people who
With
are
those
prone
yes.
to having glaucoma, is it possible to make sure they don't get glaucoma?
Don't get glaucoma or don't get blind from glaucoma, you mean?
No, I'm talking about a parent has glaucoma
Okay.
and is being managed in time. Is it possible to save what is left of the sight?
Definitely.
And then also possible to make sure the children don't get glaucoma?
Now, the truth is, if you have a strong family history of glaucoma, there may be, at a point in time, there might be manifestations, but now it can be managed. We can't stop you from being fair-skinned, okay? We can't stop you from being dark-skinned, but if it is there, how do we manage it? For instance, let me say, if you now see a child is an albino, okay, you can control it so that the skin doesn't cake and things like that. Also for the eye. If you now notice this person has a family history of glaucoma, what you need to tell them is, look, yearly you should see your doctor. You should schedule, regular visits with your eye doctor, and they will tell you, whatever plan he or she has for you to make sure there is no debilitating result from that condition.
What would you like to see done in Nigeria as a government for eye care in the country?
Okay, now what I would love to do, I want to say kudos to the Lagos State government. They adopted the Nigerian Optometric Association plan in terms of creating vision corridors in all secondary schools. That's talking about the public secondary schools and local government, you know, or LCDAs. They've adopted that. They've done it in a few. In fact, we visited and we saw it. It was a brainchild of the Nigerian Optometric Association. And what it does is to help teachers and children, because, you know, teachers will always come in contact with the children, where we had to train teachers on how to recognize simple eye problems, okay? And we also want to appeal to the federal government too, because we've tried, you know, as an association to visit, you know, with legislatures, but, you know, the Nigerian factor, that's the way I'll put it.
So you're asking for more awareness to be created?
Especially in children, okay? At the age of 3, there should like be a law, like it is in developed countries, where every child, some schools are already doing that, okay? Before you start school, have your eyes checked.
I'm afraid we are going to have to stop on that note.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming, Dr. Sam Sedgwick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.